Hi, Tim here with Clive Coffee. Today we're going to show you how to remove the panels. We have an A53 direct plumb model. This process will work for your A53 Mini or any Vivaldi model as well. The tools that you will need: simply a Phillips head screwdriver. We're going to go ahead and start by removing the top panel. There's a single screw that holds that into place. Take that out completely, and this top panel just pops right out. Just be careful with the edges here. We're going to set this aside. You can see 4 screws up on top that hold these tabs into place. Those are for either side panel. We're going to start with the panel that's closest to me here. Before I get started, I'm going to actually pull my drip tray out, and we'll set that aside. And I am going to remove, there's a black knob that holds the front of the panel in place. I'm going to go ahead and remove that, set that aside. To begin, we're going to tip the machine at a 45-degree angle, and that's going to give us access to the bottom 2 tabs. You see the big screws down here. Go ahead and loosen those up and take them out. And while I have the machine on this side, I can loosen the back panel screw. It does not need to come out completely. I can just a couple of turns just to keep that loosened up. And now we'll put the machine back. Next, we can loosen the top 2 screws and take those out. Those are the ones that are holding the panel tabs in place. It's also holding the side mirror in place, so just that is going to come out. You might want to remove that first before we pop the panel off. So that comes right off. Set that aside, and those screws. Now, as we remove the panel itself, you're going to give it a nice tug. There's a plastic tab here that holds in place against the machine itself, so you might need to give that a little bit of force. That'll pop right off, and your panel comes off very easily. We'll set that off to the side. We're going to repeat this process for the other side. We'll start with this black screw knob here. We'll take that off, and we'll set that aside. And now we're going to tip the machine at a 45-degree angle in the other direction. That'll give us access to the screws holding the bottom 2 tabs in place, and also that screw that holds the back panel in place. So we're going to go ahead and loosen those up. Bottom screws on the bottom tabs can come out completely. And the screw that holds the back panel can just be loosened up. Just a couple of turns. Gently we'll place this back down. Now we're going to remove the top 2 screws. Again, careful to remove that side mirror before you take the panel off. So this mirror comes off. And gently just remove the panel. You might feel a little bit of force from this plastic tab here that attaches kind of to the machine itself. Go ahead and give that a tug, and that should come off really easily. So we'll go ahead and set aside our panel. And today we are going to repanel the machine with wood panels. I have our wood panels here ready to go. As you can see, they have the metal tabs that are attached. Those will line up with the screws that we just removed. Besides our panels, the only other hardware that we need, you will be sent that if you are installing these yourselves, are these crush washers. We're going to start with the panel that is closest to me here. You're going to see this long piece, that's where the drip tray kind of fits in. So make sure you have the correct panel. The bottom tabs we're going to install first. So to do this, we're going to be tipping the machine at a 45-degree angle, and we are going to install our screws into place. A quick tip for installing these screws, you're going to notice you have some short ones and some long ones. These short screws can be replaced and swapped out for the 4 screws that hold your top panels in place. As you can see, those end up being a longer screw, and that's going to make it easier for us for installing these panels, as the wood panels tend to need a little bit more clearance, a little bit more tolerances. Earlier we had loosened the bottom 2 tabs, so removing those back tabs up on the top here removes your back panel completely. That's going to be useful for any troubleshooting or diagnostics. For our purposes, we're going to go ahead and just place that back in. We're going to put the shorter screws back into place here and tighten that back down. Now that we have all of our screws ready to go, we can go ahead and set up our first 2 with the crush washers. The crush washer is going to sit underneath the plate. You'll see this in just a moment. I'm going to line the panel up as gently as I can, making sure that the aluminum fits into the grooves along all sides, both front and back. You want it to sit as flush as possible. Just being very gentle with it. And now that I have it in place, I can hold this and anchor it, and the whole side tips up. And I'm going to take my washer, and we're going to slide the washer itself underneath the metal tab. Go ahead and set that screw into place there. We'll do the other one at the same time. And just tighten that down. And while we're down here, we can go ahead and tighten down that back screw for that metal panel in the front. And we'll gently place it back. And now we're ready to put the screws back in place for our top panel. Before we put the mirror piece back in place, to make this as easy as possible, I'm going to gently bend the tabs so that they have a little bit of an angle going outward. You'll notice that the tab and the machine, if there's a little bit of extra space, you could use an additional crush washer. Our machine today has a tighter tolerance, so that's not necessary. So we're going to go ahead and take our 2 screws and drop them into place and tighten things down here. As you're tightening the top of the panel down, just be aware that the panel itself might shift. You're going to want to apply some pressure here. So you might want to lean into the machine against the panel as you tighten that down. The slight bend that you have in that side mirror piece will allow the mirror to just sit as flush as possible against the machine side. We're going to repeat the process for the other side panel. Again, we'll get this set up and ready to go. We're going to first put our crush washers on the screws themselves and get that set up. We'll line the panel up into place here, ensure that the bottom tabs sit into place and the metal front and back sit in the grooves of the wood panel themselves. Once you have the panel lined up with the metal pieces of the machine, we can go ahead and holding here and tip it to about 45 degrees and go ahead and, with your washer in place, slide that underneath the tab, kind of tighten it down by hand, and that second washer also underneath the tab, in between the tab and the machine. And we'll tighten that down by hand. We'll tighten everything up here. Make sure that it's about as flush as possible. And while you're here, you can tighten that back panel screw and just tighten that down. Now we'll go ahead and lower it and get the top screws in place. I've already went ahead and bent the tabs on my side mirror. We can go ahead and kind of place that where it belongs. Kind of hand tighten it. And one more time, just check our alignment before we tighten things down. As you tighten this down, you can pull the machine, pull that panel as close to you as possible just to get it nice and tight fit. Finally, we can put the top panel back in place, and we're going to tighten it down with that longer screw. So it just slides right in place there, and then just drops right into place. The long screw, you can set that in place and tighten it down. We can go ahead and put our drip tray back into place here. And just double check, make sure that the spacing and alignment looks good. Now you're ready to plug your machine in and start making espresso. For additional tech videos or other resources, visit us at clivecoffee.com.